What's up, everybody? We're going to go over in this video my style of scalping, how I like to scalp. And this has changed a lot, especially with my Apex accounts, because my style of scalping before pretty much breaks their DCA rules. And so I've had to redo my style of scalping. And when I started working on redoing my style of scalping, my win rate went down significantly. Part of this is because as a position goes against me, I typically will add to it depending on where it is for different reasons, but I can't do that anymore. And so because I was able to hold positions for longer and let them come back, I tend to have about like 80 to 90% win rate while trading. But now I am using hard stops. At least this is what I'm using right now. And so I just wanted to go over it in a video because I get literally asked every single day, what are you using to scalp, right? So first thing, let's jump over to the main screen. You can see that this is a PA account here, right? That this is an Apex PA. This is the 250. You can see I'm up $9,000, and you can see the trades today. Only made about 800 bucks. I really want to make 1,000, but you know, it's just a really crappy day. FOMC's in a couple of days. It's not really worth trying to force trades. And so I'm just done trading it for the day. But if I go out to let's go out to this month, right? You can see how this equity curve looks, right? And I'll jump into some of these bigger losses really quick early on. I was taking some bigger trades, right? Early on, I was using five contracts, sometimes all the way up to 10 contracts. And so these bigger losses reflect me trying to use larger size. And so I dialed it in, stopped doing larger size, you know, and basically, you know, kept all my losses kind of in the smaller range. So I'm usually scalping with 1 to about 4, sometimes 5 contracts now, but I'm not going over 5 anymore, at least until I have a bigger buffer on the account. And I'm using typically a 16 tick stop loss on most, like probably 80% of my trades have a 16 tick stop loss. Most of my take profit levels are at 32 and or 64. And I don't always let that play out. So if I'm trading 1664 and I think that we might not move up higher or it's going to pull back, I'll take the profit. And so, yeah, so that's reflected in here. But sometimes like I'll let those trades play out, right? And, you know, get a nice trade. So that's what I've been dialing in. It's been taking me a while to get it to a point that I like. Sometimes also I might go up to having a 32 tick stop. It's very rare. And then having like a 64 tick or greater take profit. But it's very rare that I'm opening up my stop that much. And so you can see these are my trades. And this is like the overall equity curve of it, which is great. Once I stop taking those bigger losses, you can see it kind of really starts to smooth out. Now, because I'm trading smaller size, you know, I would like to have $2,000 days, but it's not always going to happen. So it's not the end of the world when it doesn't happen. And I'll take a lot of little losses. A great example would be just today, right? Where, you know, you can see I'm taking a lot of little, these $80 losses, right? But it's like, even though I took 3 $80 losses right here, very quickly in sync with each other, because I thought the move was going to happen. I just kept on getting really bad fills. And, you know, it kept on pulling back just enough just to wake me out. Eventually that did play in my favor. This was only 1 contract each trade, right? And then this one win was using at that 16 tick, 64 take profit. And you can see that one win basically cancels out these losses. And then I kind of maintain that 64, you know, tick, 64 tick stop or take profit. And I did have some big losses in here when I went up to like 3 contracts. But overall, you can see like that equity curve kind of on the day, it doesn't look that great. But again, it's like, it's not about the day. It's about, you know, how are you performing over time, right? And so I think that's important to get people to understand. So because I am because I am entering in so quickly, because my stop is so tight, right? That I am not looking for, a lot of times, like, I'm looking for the start of a move, right? I'm looking for these wicks here, right? And then it's like, I'm looking for the start of a move. And most of my trades are taken off of the 1 minute chart here, right? Along with the Rinko chart and the footprint chart, right? And I need to actually go ahead. Let me refresh this. So the footprint chart loads correctly, because it's not loaded. All right, let's go to the footprint chart now. So this is the footprint chart, right? So it's like, when I'm scalping, I'm using everything that I possibly can to figure out when and where to take my entries, right? The footprint chart is great, especially when we have a stacked imbalance like this. We come down to it, right? This is the great entry, right? And then it's like, what does this look like on the 1 minute? Well, on the 1 minute, it kind of looks like garbage. It doesn't really look like anything, right? That pullback does not look great, right? But that pullback is that stacked imbalance. It's not off a moving average. That's a great entry, right? I think we should probably go back to the beginning of the day though here and looked at some of these early stacked imbalances on a footprint chart, right? So we have a stacked imbalance here at 947, where we have this push down, right? So there's a couple of things here where this is like the 930 open. At 930 open, we have this push up. We have this push back down to the stacked imbalance. Notice how we bounce off the stacked imbalance. Again, if you wanted to try to scalp that, you definitely could, right? And you definitely would have ended up in some profit there. So that's, let's see, that is 54 to 70 to 80, 54 to 80. And so that's a decent chunk of profit, that move, right? Then now the second time we're going to come down to it, what do I always say? The second time we're retesting stacked imbalance, that is a very, typically it's bearish, right? Typically we're not going to bounce on the same stacked imbalance twice, right? So you can see we break through it, and then look, we formed a stacked imbalance down to the downside. We come back up into that stacked imbalance and then continuation. All these would be great scalps trying to short up here, right? Once we're coming back into this is a valid short, right? This is a valid long. This here is a valid short again, right? This down here, right? It's like, what do you have to go off of that this might be a key level of support? Well, it's kind of like a double bottom, right? But I remember, I keep on telling people, you need to continue looking at other charts. And so I'm just going to show you guys this. This is the QQQ, right? So where were we? We came down to S1 on the QQQ, right? And you can see this is where we wick, right? And if we look over at, let's go over to like SPX, right, this morning. So SPX didn't touch anything. Let's look at it on ES. ES, it didn't look that good either. I mean, NQ, really, we wicked this pivot here, but that level just is not, it's not a great level. I probably would not have caught that, right? Maybe it looks a little better on the 2 minute though. Right, coming down here, we bounce off of the pivot. We have this long wick down, and then we start coming off of that pivot. Now this could be a valid entry, right? So these are, I'm looking at all these charts. A lot of people think I'm just looking at the Rinko, or I'm just looking at the 1 minute, or I'm just looking at the 5 minute. No, I look at everything. I'm taking everything into consideration, right? I think fair value gaps are very important too, right? Especially on the 15-minute chart, right? So if we have fair value gaps, right, sometimes we want to trade into those fair value gaps, right? And so technically there's a fair value gap right in here, from here to here on the 15 minutes, right? Probably wants that. So it's an interesting thing. The other thing is that we had a gap on QQQ overnight, right? Now doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to fill that gap, but it's likely that it might try, in my opinion. But There's also inside gaps ups and outside gaps ups, and there's a bunch of that goes into that. But overall, this is what I'm looking for to take scalps. Again, it's like we're coming up, we come back down, right? Where's a good valid potential entry to try to scalp this long? It's right here on this line, right? And then same thing as we come back up. It's like where are we looking potentially to take a short? Right here at this level, right? And then we go over into the stacked and balanced charts, and we see, was there a stacked imbalance there that was taken out? No. Like we're always looking for that extra confluence is what we're looking for, right? No matter what we're trading, we're looking for that extra confluence, right? Now, once you identify like a level, okay, the other thing I mark out, look, marked out these pink lines is the 15-minute range, right? That's the 15-minute range here. That's the 15-minute range down here, right? So once we come back into the 15-minute range, right? Where's the probability that we're going to, like the probability that if we come into the 15-minute range and we're bullish, right? That we're probably going to come up at least to this 15-minute range, which is exactly what we did. So it's like, that's another bullish trade, right? Once we break out of this, right? It was kind of nasty to, it was kind of iffy trying to break out of it, because you can see we wicked out and then we came back in, right? But then it's like, this is where it's like, you go down to the 1 minute, right? And you look for, okay, we came up out of it, right? And then we're coming back in. Where's that potential support level at, right? And keep in mind, a lot of big orders, at least I like to think, are typically on big key numbers, right? So we have literally 19,100 right here, right? And that's a big number. And so it's kind of where we bounce, but we're also, looking at the moving averages, taking that into consideration, because moving averages can act as support sometimes, right? And also, if we go to the 1 minute on on ES as well, right? Where we bounce at right here is also the 50 moving average on ES as well. So if I go to ES, you can see that's the 50 moving average right there, right? Now, it's actually pretty cool because it's like we pretty much hold VWAP all through here, right? All through that section, which is really important. And so it's like I'm looking for these I'm looking at the overall picture and trying to find the bigger moves, right? Again, fair value gaps from smart money concepts, change of character, all that I'm taking into consideration to validate my scalps, right? The other thing is, like, I love the Rinko. Rinko's really fantastic, right? Are you going to be able to do a 16 tick stop loss trading Rinkos? Maybe. It would be very, very hard, right? Again, this whole move up right here, right? We don't really have any good bounces, right? We're barely not coming down to the midline, so you could try to take some of these and you would probably end up in profit on most of those, right? But once we come up here and we start coming back down though, right? Again, could you take this as a bounce here? Yes, but it's like, I want other validation other than this is just like a potential midline bounce, right? I want other validation that this is just a midline bounce here, right? You can trade these midline bounces all you want, but it's like, for me, it's like, why would I just trade off the Rinko when I can use other charts to support that, right? And so that's the concept. That's the whole idea, right? It's like, I want to know, like this level right here, right? If I'm just looking at the Rinko right here, right? That's cool. Like, why is this supporting here? What's at this level, right? Okay, well, I can tell you that exact level is this on NQ, right? Which is the VWAP right here. There's the VWAP, the white line right there that we're bouncing off of, right? Look at this. We're also on the VWAP on ES as well, which is a big deal, right? On the QQQ, we're also on VWAP as well, right? I mean, we're bouncing off of the QQQ VWAP. This is a strong potential level. There's also the QQQ pivot right here, right? So these are all things that I'm looking at. I'm like, are we going to bounce off this level, right? The other thing is to take in consideration is like we have lots of news this week, right? And you know, at 101, right, we had the 10-year, right? So there's things that you have to take everything into consideration. So a lot of people ask me, what scalping strategy am I using to, you know, run up a, you know, $9,000 in 5 trading days or 6 trading days, whatever it's been, right? For trading relatively safe and having this nice equity curve, right, going up, right? Well, I'm using good risk to reward, right? And I'm using multiple validations for most of my entries. Again, if you were, here's the thing, okay? Go into this, right? Right now, my win rate is only on this account right now is only 59.45%. My win rate is very low, but I am up on this account significantly, right? Keep that in mind. Like, look, this is a very low win rate, especially for me. This is like probably the lowest win rate I've had on a PA account probably in the past year, right? However, look at my profits, look at my equity curve, right? I'm still very, very profitable because of one simple reason is because I am using good risk to reward ratios. That's it. There's nothing more to that, right? And so if you don't have good risk to reward ratios, right, while you're trying to scalp the midline, great, right? I just showed you like because I have good risk to reward, right? I'm able to have a 59% win rate, right? And still be incredibly profitable, right? With a 59% win rate. So that should tell people like, this is how important to me, at least my entries are, right? I want really, really good entries. By me having really, really good entries allows me to, you know, by me having really, really good entries allows me to have, you know, not the highest win rate, but still be extremely profitable. And this is where I think a lot of people misunderstand how to trade Rinkos or how to trade the midnight bounce, right? Midnight bounce works by itself, right? I mean, do you think you could trade this and be 50% of the time profitable or 60% of the time profitable? Yeah. Like, I mean, even if we just did it today, right? If we just do it today, we'll do it and we'll do longs only, right? Just to kind of prove a point. Just so I don't have to keep on changing it. So let's say we're not going to trade the first 5 minutes because it's all choppy, right? So we trade this and we have a good risk to reward of like, I don't know, let's just say like 32 to, let's see what we can do with this, right? 32 to, so we're just going to go for 50 ticks here and we're going to try to make the stops 25. So again, have that nice 2 to 1, right? And so the idea would be like we're going to enter probably, I mean, this is where getting your entries correct is probably the hardest thing about this, right? Having good risk to reward is part of it, but it's like getting your good entries as well. Actually, so let's just count this one as a loss, right? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it to here, right? And move, yeah. So that would be a loss, right? So then we're going to be looking for our next entry, right? Our next entry probably would be this one right here, right? That one would play out in your favor. Let's see, realistically, that's all hard. Let's just count this one as a loss, right? Let's count this one as a loss. Let's count let's just say you tried to re-enter again once you started seeing that bounce. Let's count that one as a win. Then let's count this midline bounce here. Let's count that one as a loss. Let's count this one as a so that one's a loss. So let's count this one here as a win. And then let's count this one here as a win again. And then let's count this one here as a win again. I mean, so you start to see, as long as you're playing, whatever, I can't do it. And then this one would be a win again. Let's just say, right? And again, just having that good, proper risk to reward ratio, right? So it's like, as long as you're winning over 50% of your trades, you're going to be profitable, right? Now, this gets into like, is Rinko the best thing to snipe this entry, right? And that's where things start to, come apart for a lot of people, right? A lot of people will be very hesitant on their entries, right? And then they're taking their entries up here, or sometimes halfway up those moves, right? So this is where it's like, okay, can you also incorporate other charts to then take that, or change your risk to reward settings to fit your style, right? So if like you're finding yourself entering, a little bit late on these entries, right? So now you're finding that your average stop needs to be 60 points, right? Or let's just say 50 ticks, right? And your reward needs to be then like 100 ticks, right? How often does that play in your favor, right? And yeah, so that's what you have to figure out. So this is where it's like, Rinko's is great, right? However, this is where it's like, can you use other charts or look at other things to give you potentially better entries, right? This is where it's like, again, I mean, people think I'm like making it up that I'm using a 16 tick, a 16 tick stop loss, but you can see like in here, even if we just go to today, right? You can see that like my trades are 80, this one's like 110. I'm not sure how that happened. It's probably just slippage, but 80, 85, 80, right? That's because that is 16 ticks right there, right? When you see it go greater than that, this is because I'm using 2 contracts now, right? This one was 3 contracts, 80 times 3, right? This is because I'm using 2 contracts here, right? And this is me back to 1, right? And so notice that I'm also changing. The other thing about my style of trading is like I'm changing the amount of contracts that I'm trading all the time, depending on the setup, right? Again, like if we, are very, very, if we have multiple confluences of, that we just came off the daily, the weekly and the daily VWAP, we came up, we're coming back down to that 15-minute range, right? So, I mean, this is what we had today. Like we came down to the daily, came down to the weekly, right? And start to come back up, right? And then we kind of come back down to the daily here, right? Is this potentially a good trade, right? And then like this is a great trade. So it's like on the 1 minute, it's looks pretty choppy, right? And looks like we did this and this, right? But then also remember that we have a pivot point right here, right? So if I'm going to stack entries, I might take a lot of entries right here, because if there's a good chance that if this holds now, right, that we're going to get a nice push out of here, right? And like, again, 16 tick stop is, I can show people what that looks like on here, because it looks like nothing. It's so tiny. That's a 16 tick stop. And then my take profit is 64 ticks. So my take profit is 64 ticks, which is there. So that's the move I'm looking for. I'm looking for this move. And sometimes, depending on like if I get a really, really good entry, yeah, I might go ahead and I might try to let one just ride for the rest of the day, and put it at break even and let that happen as well. So this is again just my style of scalping. I know it's like I know it's not as straightforward as people want it to be, right? It's not just, hey, use the Rinkos and use this, right? It's I look at everything. It's very hard for me to duplicate my style of trading or teach somebody my style of trading to the T, right? The QuantView indicators help dramatically, right? Get very close to my style of trading. The Rinko charts, right? Using the moving averages on the 1 minute, using smart money concepts. I think people do not underestimate how often I'm using the 15-minute chart. The 15-minute chart is key. Like 15-minute chart is everything for me. Like 15-minute chart is, this is what I want. Like this is like one of the most important charts to me, right? Because on a 15 minutes, it's like, I want to see what's that 15-minute range, like where are the pivots, right? I want to be able to zoom out and be like, oh, all right, so this was previous daily levels and stuff, right? Here's the change of character. This change of character is a big deal. A 15-minute change of character is a much bigger deal than like a 2-minute or 1 minute, right? So once we get this change of character and we start to push back down, would the daily or the weekly VWAP hold, right? Either one of these hold, this is going to be potentially an amazing trade, right? So once we get that hold and we come back up on the 15-minute and we come back down and we're bouncing off this pivot, like all this is just telling you like, hey, like this is going to be a very, very bullish day, right? And again, it's like you can see when we broke this downtrend yesterday, right? Or today. Is this today? This was yet overnight, right? So you can see we break this downtrend, right? I had this line drawn on my chart before we opened today, right? This is what I was looking at. I was looking at, okay, can we hold above this level, right? Now the first 15 minutes is kind of iffy, right? But you can see we start to hold above that level. Once we break through, this trend flips, right? Trends flip all the time, right? In terms of like becoming bullish or bearish on either side of it, right? And so, you know, this is key. This is like, I can't stress this enough. The 15-minute chart, even though I am scalping for very, very tiny amounts, I need the 15-minute. The 15-minute is like everything to me. And then also I still look at the 4 hours. A lot of people don't think, think that because I'm scalping for these tiny, tiny amounts, right, that I'm not aware of what the 4 hour is doing. So this is up on my chart every single day. Usually I switch between the day chart and the 4 hour, right? But this trend line right here, right? Okay, so there's a couple things, right? I know all these lines kind of look like they don't mean anything, right? There's a lot of them, right? But if we zoom in here, the trend lines that mattered to me the most on the 4 hour is this one right here, this green one, right? And then the other trend line that matters to me right now is this one right here. It's kind of more like, it should be probably drawn more like this right now. But either way, the point is that we're kind of, this green trend line is really important, right? On the 4 hour to me. So during market hours, I want to see this being constantly respected, right? And this is what we've seen on the 4 hour. Boom, 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 right? So as we come into here, this was, let's see, as we came into yesterday, I want to show you yesterday because yesterday was great. Tuesday, that would have been the 10th. Yesterday was a great day. So it's like, here's yesterday. We're coming into this trend line, right? And we had just this crazy push out, right? Now, keep in mind, I don't care really if we come out of this trend line during not normal market hours, right? Which is exactly what we do. We fall out of it during the overnight session, London, Asian. And then on today, it was like, okay, well, here we kind of have a couple different levels, in my opinion. We have the base wicks, the base of these 4 hours right there, right? We have these wicks, and then we have this wick. If those 3 levels give out, we're probably coming down hard, right? If we come up to this level here, right? This trend here might be the rejection point. However, if we come back into this trend and we close in the 4 hours in this trend, then we're extremely bullish for the rest of the day. It's literally a higher time frame analysis, right? To then take smaller trades, right? And so, it's perfect. Like when you see it like this, right? And you see that, hey, we're going to retest this trend line probably on the 4 hour. Why would you try to take shorts, and so again, this is just things that I am paying attention to. I don't just use the 15-minute. I don't just use the 5-minute. I don't just use Q, right? I'm looking at ES, I'm looking at SPX, QQQ, the 4 hour, the 15, 5, 2, 1, 4 box Rinko, and the stacked imbalances. I use all of that in conjunction to then take my scalps, right? So I wish like I could make a easier video for people to like try to understand how I trade, right? How I scalp, why I'm able to have a stop loss of 16 ticks, you know, and still be a very profitable, right? This is like my best way of doing this. Again, the last thing I'll add is like smart money concepts on the 15-minute is extremely important. Fair value gaps are extremely important. A lot of times, like when we have eventually come up to this pivot and we come back down, right? It'd be looking maybe for it to trade to this fair value gap, right? I'm always looking at those fair value gaps on the 15-minute because a lot of times those fair value gaps want to be halfway filled and then they reject, right? But then it's like I'm looking down at the lower time frames as well. It's like, okay, where's the 50 moving average? Where's the 21? Where is the 9 moving average? Where's daily VWAP at, right? Looking at the wrinkles, looking at the footprint, like are there other reasons that fair value gap might hold a lot more credibility than it just being a fair value gap again? So anyways, that's it for this video. I know this was a long one. I hope I answered a lot of questions in this one. Make sure you guys like, subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.